Hello, everyone. We're live for our talk today about search engine optimization. And I'm just going to wait here for a minute to give people a chance to come on live if they want to, while I continue to set up my notes. So we'll start in just a minute. So I just wanted to remind you, too, that if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments section and I will answer them along the way. Or if you're watching this on the replay, do the same thing. If you have any questions, put them in the comments and I'll check back later and I will get back to you. So I'm just going to start with some basic search engine tips for those of you who are new to the subject. And then I'm going to touch on some more advanced tips and trends that I'm seeing happening for 2019. So let me just take a sip of water and then we'll get started. So what is SEO and why should you care? So SEO stands for search engine optimization. So there are some strategies that you can do to your content, to your overall website that will help you be ranked and found in the search engines like Google. So while we're talking about search engines, I'm just going to keep using the term Google because these tips will apply to anything. So if you prefer to use Bing or Yahoo or DuckDuckGo or any of the other search engines, that's fine. These tips will work for that too. I'm just going to say Google because probably 90% of the web uses Google, so it's just an easy way for me to refer to it. And Google is king. It's the largest search engine in the English-speaking world, and the second largest one is YouTube, which is also owned by Google, so a lot of these tips you can also use if you have a YouTube channel as well. And if you sell on Amazon, you can also employ some of these keyword strategies there too. Even though Amazon is an internal search engine and it's not going out across the whole internet, it's only searching Amazon, you can use some of the things that we're going to talk about, some of the keywords at least, in your Amazon plans as well. So why do we want to employ search engine optimization? Well, the thing is that, especially when we're first starting out in business or with our blogs, people aren't searching for you by name, and they're not searching for your company name. They don't really know you yet. What they're really doing when they go to a search engine is they're looking for answers to their problems or maybe answers to their questions, or they might be looking to be entertained or they're looking to buy something. There are a lot of reasons people type things into a search engine, but they're not necessarily looking for you specifically yet. So maybe if you develop into a big brand, people might type in, Chanel foundation or something like that. But when you're still small and you're not really that well known, they're just looking to have their problem solved. So if you know who you're trying to reach, you can talk to them in a way that uses similar language to what they're typing into a search engine. So if you can answer their problem, or if you have a product that can solve their problem, or if you offer something that is entertaining to them, whatever it is that they're looking for, whatever it is that you're offering, if they match up, chances are that Google will recommend you as someone that they should go to and look at their website. So that's why we do SEO. And then what is SEO and how can you apply these strategies? So let me go through and tell you the little things that you can do to your content and to your website that can help you get recognized there. So the first thing you want to do is really get to know who you're trying to reach. Who is your target audience? Because that way you're going to know what they need and how they're going to talk about it. So different age groups, different people who want different things will refer to things in different ways. So if you're selling products, skincare products, for example, and you're selling them to a target audience of people who are maybe 50 or over, you're going to talk to them differently than you would talk to someone who is in their 20s. So someone who, they have different problems. So someone who's 50 may be looking for something for rosacea or for hormonal redness or just dryness or anti-aging, where someone who's in their 20s might still be looking for an acne treatment or, just the beginning basics of skincare. So they want different things, and you can also talk to them in different ways. And even if they do want the same thing, so if they're coming to a website and they're looking for ways to relax, for example, someone who is a little bit older, like me, who's 50-something, might use the word stress relief because that was the key term that we used, in my generation. So I might be looking for ways to relieve stress. But someone who is 20-something, their word is anxiety, and they're looking for ways to deal with their anxiety. So it's just little things like that that you can figure out who your target audience is, then you know how to talk to them better. And that will help you come up with the keywords that you're going to use on your website. So if anyone's here live, I can see that someone is here live. Hello, thank you for joining me. If you have any questions along the way, please just put them in the comments and I will answer them along the way. So how do you go about finding your keywords? So when you know your target audience, figure out where they're hanging out. So what kind of blogs do they read, or which social media sites do they go to a lot? You know, do they use Facebook, or do they use Instagram, or do they use Snapchat? They all kind of have different age ranges and different things that people are looking for on them. So if you know where to find them, you can kind of look to see what they're talking about on there. Hi Sharon, hi Vanessa, thank you for joining me. So if you do find a blog, for example, that is a larger, more popular blog that is sort of in the same, wants to talk about the same subject that you do, and you can kind of consider them your competition, but they're a little bit bigger and have more authority than you, look to see what they're posting to those kind of people if they're trying to solve the same problems. See what language they're using. You can kind of try to figure out what keywords they're using. You can even kind of look in the back end of their code if you know how to, and see what they've optimized for. And then look in the comment section of those blogs and see what people are asking questions about, because they may have written an article about a certain subject, but then people are asking questions because they didn't really answer all of those points. So see what language they're using when they ask them questions, or see what language they're using to talk to that audience. And then if you know where they're going on social media, if you kind of figure out like what type of people are influencing them, which social media influencers do they follow, see what kind of language they're using, and then you can come up with the keyword phrases that you think, make a list of keyword phrases that you think are a good reach for them. But they also have to match what you're offering, of course, you know, so you don't want to just write to that generation about, you know, something that's not related to your business. Because like I said, they're looking to solve a problem. So if you can figure out what their problem is, what language they're using to describe it, then you can use that language to figure out how to help them and to find them, you know, using their own lingo. Because each generation has its own way of describing things. Okay, so what you can do is make a list of keywords, and then there are some tools that you can use to see what the competition is on that keyword, or how popular that keyword is, or what other people are doing with that keyword, and we'll get into that in a minute. So let me just tell you some of those tools, and as I mentioned them, after we're done here, I'll put a bunch of these links in, because a lot of these tools are for free, and they're really helpful to use. So when I'm done, I'll just pile them all into the comments and you can see them there. You may have heard of some of them, but the first thing to do is, once you make your list of potential keywords, like come up with about 10, 15 keywords that you think you want to target for some blog post or target in your product descriptions. And then go to something like the Google Keyword Planner. Or there's the Yoast Keyword Expander, or there's a site called BuzzSumo, there's a site called Answer the Public, which I think we talked about in our last live session. So the Google Keyword Planner tool will help you. You can put in a keyword, you have to have a Google account, but it is free to use. You can put in your keyword, and it'll tell you the search volume on that. So how many times people a day are typing that keyword into their search engine. And it'll kind of give you a sense of the competition. So if it really has a high number of search volume, you might want to try to go more specific so you're not competing in this gigantic sea of people looking for that keyword. But that's a great tool to use just to see what keywords people are using and how often, and what kind of the competition level is. So you kind of want to target keywords that are maybe more appropriate to the size of your website, because then once you get those targeted keywords, then you can kind of expand out from there. So that's a good tool to use. It's the Google Keyword Planner, and I'll put the link to that when we're done. Take a sip of water. The Yoast Keyword Extender tool is really interesting, and Yoast.com is a company that specifically has a plugin for SEO that works with WordPress sites. And they have a site called yoast.com/suggest. And you can type your keyword into there, and then it will expand that keyword out in many ways and make you longer. We call them a long tail keyword. So it gets really specific with the keyword, because when we talk about keywords, we're really talking about a keyword phrase. So if you sell skincare, for example, you could type in skincare, and then you can see these phrases that are built out like skincare for teens. You know, it'll add words to it that makes it even more specific. And it'll give you a whole list. You might get 200 different long tail keywords, and a lot of them will be similar, and you don't want to use all of them that are, you know, that they list out there. But you can probably combine some of them and use them in one article. And it's just a really great way to get really specific with your keywords, so that when you're going for those, the more specific you get with that phrase, the smaller the competition is going to be for that keyword in Google. Another one, another tool that is really interesting is called BuzzSumo. It's buzzsumo.com, and I'll put the link in at the end. And if you type a keyword in there, it'll tell you what is the most shared content for that keyword, which is a really interesting, a different perspective to get on a keyword. It'll show you the sort of the most popular content that has been created for that keyword. So it's kind of giving you an idea of what your competition is and where people are going a lot to follow that keyword. So you can look at that content and then see what they're doing. And you're not going to copy them, of course, but you can kind of get an idea of what types of content people are looking for around that keyword. And then it might even give you ideas. You might get inspired by that content and be able to see what holes they have in their content where you can even make it better than what they have. It's just a really great tool to see what's going on in your industry, and it kind of also gives you an idea of what's trending at the moment. And speaking of trending, the last one I'm going to tell you is called answerthepublic.com, and it is a paid site, but you can use it free with 3 keyword searches a day. So every day you can go on there and do it 3 times. And what it will do is when you type in a keyword, it'll give you all of the questions that people are typing into the internet, into the search engine surrounding that keyword. So it actually gives you the phrase, the question that people are asking, and it'll give you a lot of them. It's a really interesting tool to see just the language people are using around that keyword and what kind of problems that they're searching for around that keyword. So that's another good one to use to establish this list of keywords that you're going to start going for. And another really simple thing you can do is if you can start typing your keyword into Google, before you hit the enter key, you know how it starts to auto-fill in for you because it's trying to guess what you're typing in. It's doing that based on how many things that people are actually typing in and what's popular that people are typing in. So you can do that and not actually hit enter and sort of get an idea of what it's reading. And then you can do the same thing in YouTube and maybe get slightly different results because, like I said, they're owned by the same company. So you can start to type in the search bar, skincare for, and then it starts to fill out the rest of that phrase, and it might give you several things, and it gives you another idea. That's just a really simple, easy way to do it. Okay, so let me look at my notes here and see where we are. Okay, so once you have your keywords, what do you do with them? So you're going to create great content around that phrase. So what Google's looking to do really is they want to answer someone's question. So people type in what they're looking for in Google, and they want to be able to give them the best possible answer that fits what that person is looking for. So they're not really looking, to play a game with people. I know some people get really stressed out about search engine and think, oh, Google's against me. They're not really. They're just looking to provide the best answer to the people who are using their service. So you have to make yours the best content that you can. So once you have that keyword, try to create the best content on the web and do some research around that keyword, what other people are doing, like I said, see what the competition is doing, and see if you can outperform them, see if you can make a better article. And like I said, if you look at the questions that people are asking on some of those posts, where they didn't get the information that they needed in a blog post, so they're asking those questions, answer those questions in your article. So, don't copy them, but use it as inspiration and realize what was missing from that content so that you can make yours even better. And it's a great way to just make your website the best that it can be. So let me see what else I have here for you about placement for keywords once you have them. So if you do have a WordPress site and you use Yoast, it makes it really easy because they kind of keep a little scorecard on each blog post that you write about how you're doing for that article on SEO. But some of the basic things you can do, if you don't have a WordPress, you don't have that tool, is to take that keyword phrase and make sure that you put it in your headline. And you don't want to put it too many places, and you want to use it exactly as you typed it into the search engine. So if you're using, say, if your keyword is skincare for rosacea, make sure that your title says the best skincare for rosacea, or probably something better than that, like skincare for rosacea for women in their 50s, or whatever you want to make your title. And then repeat that keyword phrase in the first paragraph of your content. So as soon as someone reads that first paragraph, they see that keyword phrase, and it's also telling the search engine, who's not a human trying to read that, it's a bot trying to read your site, it's finding that keyword phrase right away. So they're like, okay, that keyword phrase matches this article's title. I see it in the first paragraph. And if your paragraphs are, if your article is a little lengthy and you can break it up with some subheadings, maybe you can then use that keyword again in a subhead. And then I always like to put it in the last paragraph again to wrap it up. And you just make it seem natural in the language. You don't want to put it in the article too many times because that's called keyword padding and you will get penalized or something like that. But just weave it naturally into your content. Depending on how long it is, that's how often you will use it. But make sure that it's in your headline and it's in your first paragraph. And put it in your description text as well. So that little bit of text that Google pulls and shows in a search engine result. So when the search engines come up and you'll see like 1 or 2 sentences, make sure that you use it once in there too, because that little place for the description is a way for you to write a little promo for your article. It's sort of like ad copy for your article. And you want to use the keyword phrase in there, and only once, just use it in there so Google doesn't think that you're spamming anybody by trying to like pad it with the keywords. But that's what you do with your keywords. So you weave it into your content, you put it in your headline, you put it in your description, and you put it in your subheads if you have a lengthy piece of content. So that's number 1. Let me take a peek at my notes here, make sure I'm not missing anything. One thing about keywords, you also want to think about the phrases that are related to that keyword, because Google will also look at synonyms for that phrase and terms that are sort of in that industry as well. So like as an example, I used to write about cars. So if I had a keyword that was something specific about cars, if I'm writing about like the 2019 Ford Mustang, it's also going to look for words that are related to that topic in my paragraph. So it's going to look for things like tires and engine and horsepower and the terminology that gets used with that subject matter. Because sometimes people do get spammy on the web and they'll use a keyword phrase and they'll throw that keyword phrase in there, and then the article's not about anything else. They're trying to push links at you for something. So it's really looking out for that kind of stuff. So it's looking at your content as a whole, and even though it's not a human reading it, it can kind of associate those words and know that that article really is about that topic. So it's not just seeing the keyword, it's also seeing related phrases to that keyword. And then it knows more specifically what your article is about, and it's a better fit for their search engine results. Now, besides keywords, there's also a strategy around linking. Let me take a sip of water. There are 2 kinds of links that you can, linking strategies that you can use for search engine optimization. So there's an internal linking strategy where you link to your own content. So maybe you have a series of articles about something. Link them all together. Say, for more information, read my article on so-and-so, and link within your own content. So you're creating this web of content on your site, not just these standalone articles. And you're trying to draw people to read more and read more on your website. And that builds your site up in the eyes of Google as more of an authority, because you have a lot of content around this specific area and a lot of related content, and it all goes together, and your whole website is about that subject, not just that one article that you have. There's also a strategy called backlinks, and that is trying to get bigger, more authoritative sites than you to link back to your content, because Google will look at your website as a whole entity, and if there are other important sites, other bigger, larger, more popular sites than yours linking to you, they're telling Google, hey, this smaller site is also an authority on this, and I think they're enough of an authority that I'm linking to them. So try to get links from other places too, and that's not always easy to do, but it is something to think about every time you write an article. Think about other people in your industry maybe that you can collaborate with that aren't writing about the exact same thing as you, but you're sort of in the same industry, and maybe you can collaborate and you can link to each other's content, and it creates that bridge there. Or maybe you can write an article for a larger website that then will provide a link back to your article, to your website, and you build that link that way. Or there's a site called Haro, it's H-A-R-O, and it stands for Help a Reporter Out. So sometimes you can get, their journalists go on there and they're looking for people, they're writing an article and they're looking for people who are experts to provide information for their article and to get quotes for. So if you answer some of those queries and you get chosen for them, then you're getting a link back from that publication. So you might get a big journalistic publication that's linking to you, and that's a great way to get a backlink too. And also social media links that come to you, and different people referring and sharing your content, they're all links back to your website. So try to build this web of authority on the internet to where not only you are telling Google that this is what you write about, but other people are doing it too. And it's really not easy, and it takes time to build that up, but it's something very important to start thinking about. So let's talk about your website in general, because besides creating great content and optimizing for your keywords and getting links and, you know, associating your different articles, there's also some technical things you can do to your website. So Google will look very importantly at how quickly your page loads, and page speed is very important to what they consider, you know, putting you up the search engine rankings. So they have a tool themselves that's called Google Page Speed Insights. And you can type in your URL. You can do different specific pages on your website or your shop, or, you know, whatever you want to put in there, and it will look at your desktop and your mobile version, and it'll see how quickly that it loads. And what they're really looking for is, when I say quickly, they're looking for your site to load in 3 seconds or less. Seems crazy, I know. Maybe you can push it to 4 or something like that, but the quicker your page loads, the quicker they're saying that you're a well-built site, and they, you know, they don't want people sitting there waiting to load, because you have all these like big, you know, things on your website and it's not really optimized. They're not considering you as professional that way. Putting your URL into Google Page Speed Insights, it will not only tell you how quickly your page loads, it'll also tell you what you can do to improve it. So a lot of times things like images on our site are really big and they take a long time to load. So what you can do is save them down to a more web-specific format. And I don't mean like sizing them down, I mean like the density. So you can go into something like Photoshop, or like a free version of Photoshop, and you can just like take the quality level down a tiny bit. So for the web, it's not really going to be that noticeable. You don't need to have print quality images on your website, because they really take a long time to load. And one of the first things that you'll see on there with your results back is they're always telling you to make your images a little bit less dense, a little bit smaller, so that they load quicker. And then there are other technical things about how your site is built. So if you had someone build your site for you, or if you're using a theme that you bought from someone that you put on your WordPress blog, you can see if it's telling you if you're using too many like redirects or JavaScript or different things like that. And it sounds technical when you're looking at it, but if you did have someone help you with your website, you can kind of show that to them and say, can you resolve some of these things? And it kind of will tell you how you can do that as well. Oh, and an important thing that I mentioned is that it's not only looking at your desktop version of your site, it's looking at your mobile site. More people, more than 50% of people now are coming to websites from their mobile device. So either a tablet or a phone, usually a phone. So you need to make sure that you have a website that is optimized for mobile and that still works in a logical, easy to use way, so that those images that are on your site will size down for mobile and will look the same. And you know, it's called responsive design. So if you've ever heard that term, it just means designing for a mobile device. So it will look at that too. So it will give you the results for mobile and desktop. Another thing that can really slow down your site is having too many fancy things on your site. Like, you know, sometimes, like I use a theme called Divi, and whenever you put an image or something in, it automatically puts an animation where, like, when you load that page, it comes sliding in from the side. And I just turn all that stuff off. It just adds, you know, it's fancy when you come to the website and everything's coming in and, you know, it looks really cool, but it just adds seconds to that load time. And it's not really necessary. People don't care that, you know, that your site's doing all that stuff. If it's not doing it, they're not going to miss it, right? And also having like a content slider that keeps rotating with, you know, you might have 3 products on there or 3 blog posts that are circulating. Studies have shown that people don't really interact with sliders that much, so you're much better off just having one piece of content there that's static and swapping it out from time to time, because a slider can also, you know, use some of that load time. And plugins, for example, are a great way to add functionality to your website, but they also take up a lot of time. So really try to only use plugins that you absolutely need on your website. There are all kinds of fancy plugins that you could add to add all different kinds of functionality and cool things on your website, but each one that you add is just compounding the time, you know, that it's taking to load your page. So really try to trim your site down, make it look nice, make it be functional and easy to use, and you'll get a better score from Google for that. Which takes me into my next topic, which is about your website design. Take another step. The architecture of your site is important because you want it to be easy to use. So once someone, if they do find you in a search engine result, you want them to be able to find their way around your website and have it be structured in a way that it's logical and it's not a big old mess. So one of the easy things you can do is to break your blog posts up into small paragraphs of text, because you know yourself the way that we look at a website. If you go to something and it's just one big long paragraph, it's a little daunting to look at. You may not want to read something like that. But if it's broken up into a bunch of little paragraphs, you might stay there longer and look at it and read and skim it a little bit. And if you do have a longer article, breaking up in subheads is really important. And like I said, you can put your keyword in your subheads, but people will kind of skim content on a website, and especially on a mobile device. If you think about how tiny it's going to look on your phone and you're reading down, a big paragraph is just going to look huge on a mobile site. So subheads, breaking up the content into small paragraphs, it all really helps just with the user experience of your site. And also just the way that your site is, your navigation is built. You want it to just be easy to use. So when people, if they come in and they find a specific blog post for you, you kind of want them to stay and look around a little, right? So you want your navigation to be easy to use. So if it says about, that they can go to read about who you are, where's the homepage, or where is that navigation, and not have too many categories going across your navigation. You just kind of keep it really simple. So not only for the user experience, but also Google looks at your site for that kind of thing too. So if you really pare it down to just a few categories that you have, we had a whole Facebook Live about categories the last time we did one. So you can kind of scroll down on this page and find the old one if you want to look at that, about trying to trim your content down to 3 to 5 categories, and then you have all your blog posts under those certain categories. Because Google is also looking at your site, and if it's about too many things, they're not going to know how to categorize you. So if you're about 3 kind of related things, and it really gives you a strong sense of what your website is about, and it just makes it stronger in the eyes of Google, it's a better user experience for your reader. So really a well-designed site that's laid out properly will really do wonders for you. So think about that too. And last but not least is having quality content. Because if you're going to go to all this trouble of optimizing your site for search engines, you really want people to stay there and have it be worth it for them when they do find your content. Because you will get penalized in Google if people come to you and they're just like, that's not what I wanted, and they just back out right away. They can tell when people back out of a site right away. But if they stay for a minute or even a half a minute and they read your content, then they know that Google sent them to the right place, and that allows you to stay up higher in the search engine. So if people keep backing out, you're going to start finding your search engine results drifting down the page. So just make sure that you write really good quality content, make it the best about that subject that you can, and that's the way that you compete for keywords. And when you look at the competition, just try to outperform them, try to be the best that you can be, and the best content that you're offering people, and so that they come back and that they share the content because what they found really helped them, and they share it with their friends who have the same problem. And that is how you grow your website, and that's also how you grow in the eyes of Google. So I'm just going to pause here for a second before I go on to the next little subject, short bit that I have is about some trends that are happening for 2019. So if you have any questions for anything that we talked about leading up to this point, just type them in the comments and I'll get to you in a second. And if not, then I will move on to the last bit, which is about things that are happening with search engine optimization right now, because it is an ever-evolving subject. Google is always changing. They're always trying to make themselves better. They're always trying to improve the results that they give to people, and we have to keep up with that too. So make sure that you keep up with your content, and your old blog posts don't go away. They stay, and they age like a fine wine. They get more important in the eyes of Google the longer they've been there, and they get indexed deeper into the World Wide Web. So always go back and revisit your things, your older blog posts, and make sure that they're current. Make sure that the examples that you used are up to date, and keep them the best they can be. Check your keywords once in a while, because just because you wrote an article 6 months ago on something doesn't mean that someone didn't come along afterwards and write a better one, So keep your eye on the competition and see if someone is suddenly winning for that keyword over you had ranked really highly for it, and now suddenly you're starting to fall down because someone else has created newer content. So you can always go back and update your posts and see what's developing in that area. There's always new news coming out, and making sure that you're as up to date as possible. So I don't see any questions coming in. I'm going to move on to my next section, which is about the trends that I'm seeing for 2019. So like I briefly mentioned before, mobile first. Really think about your mobile site over your desktop site. And we love to have these pretty desktop sites, and we put a lot of thought and design into them, but more people than ever are using a mobile device to access your content. And Google has actually switched to mobile first indexing, so they will push mobile sites above desktop sites. So it's really important to have one that works on both, so that you don't get discounted for that. So make sure you have a really good mobile, and that everything looks nice on mobile just as well as it does on your desktop. So the images are clear, and they're not, they don't fit, they're not like breaking the sides of the, that it appears in the box and it's not like hanging over and people have to scroll over to see it. Just make sure it really works on a mobile site. Another thing to think about, and this is really a new developing area, but it's something to just start thinking about, is voice search. Because a lot of people now will say, they'll talk to Siri or they'll talk to Alexa, and they use a more conversational phrase when they do that. Because if you're typing into a search engine, you might type in soap, lavender, skincare, or something like that. You might type in some keywords. You might type in a question. But the way that people use these new voice activated programs is they're using conversational keywords is what people are calling them now. Hi Angela, thank you for joining. We're talking about the trends for 2019 now. So think about that. Like, people will say, hey Alexa, where can I find soap that smells like lavender in my area? It's just a whole different way than just those little compact keyword phrases that we use to type into Google. It's a whole different ball game, and it's really just developing now, but it's something to start thinking about. How would you phrase it if you were talking to a device like that? People kind of talk to them more like they're talking to a person. It's almost like they have a little robot assistant in their house, or even saying hey Siri, and I don't want my phone to go off by saying that. But you know what I mean. Just, it's another thing to start thinking about, that you might want to start using a conversational tone for some of those things to capture that audience as well. Also, think about local search, because a lot of times one of the biggest search terms that people do is whatever they're searching for, then they'll say near me. And you'll see yourself, if you pick up your phone and you start to type in, if you go to a browser and you start typing in a search term, all of a sudden it'll put near me as one of the recommendations. And because a lot of people are doing that. They're looking for something in their area. They might be in their car and they're looking, where can I find the best tacos near me, or something like that. Or where are the craft shows near me? Where are the farmers markets near me? Or they'll put in a zip code, like farmers markets 08080, or something like that. So start thinking about like some of those local terms too. So make sure on your website, if you do go to shows or fairs or farmers markets, that you list that on your website somewhere, where you're going to be, when you're going to be there, in hopes of capturing some of that local search audience as well. And think about too, if you are going to if you do go to a craft fair or a craft show or a farmers market, they probably have a listing too of who is going to be there, and make sure that the way that they describe you is also using some of the keyword terms that you want to use. It's another way that you can use those keyword phrases to be found, because people may not be, they're just looking for something near them, and if you match that, then maybe they'll go see you at that show, or maybe they'll realize that you're a local business. And like I know, Angela, sometimes you do things right out of your house, right? So maybe capturing that local search is another way to think about it. And if you can get a local following going, you can expand out from there. We talked about updating your old content and having quality content that's good enough. And I think one more thing I wanted to mention was writing skills. Make sure that you really check over your content for typos. Local has been very big. Oh, good. That's great, Angela. Awesome. So you're already doing it. Look at your grammar and look for typos and things like that. Really go over your post before you publish it, because Google does look at that too, to make sure that you're an authoritative site. And I don't mean you have to be a grammar expert, but you know how like if you get a spam email sometimes and it'll have certain keyword phrases in it and you can tell it's really not in good English, you know, it's not by an English speaker, it's just some kind of spam thing that they're pushing at you. Google can catch on to that too. And not that yours would be spammy, but make sure that you correct any typos or any kind of like things like that that would trigger Google to think like, maybe this isn't where I want to send somebody, because you know they're using that misspelling. You know, and sometimes people, there was a strategy a few years back where people would actually put misspellings in their keyword because they figure people are going to type it wrong into a search engine, and thinking that you know they'll put it in the right way and they'll put it in the wrong way, and it's just not a good idea. So just look at your typos and your grammar and just make sure that you can make your post in as good at English as you can, because that really helps Google, you know, as not a human reading it, it can still kind of see that you're using, you know, the right things and you're not, you know, you don't have a bunch of typos and things. And I think that's all I have. Let me just scroll through and make sure I didn't miss anything. So we went through what search engine optimization is, why you need to use it, what you do with it once you find your keywords, how to find your keywords, where to put them, building a linking strategy, and how you can update your site itself to be the best it can be. So I hope you found this helpful. And like I said, if you think of any questions later, you can put them in the comment section. I'll come back and answer them. Or if you're watching it on the replay, feel free to ask whatever you want, and I will get back to you. And as soon as I get off here, I will put in links to all those free tools that I've mentioned throughout this presentation. And you know, take advantage of them. They are free, and you know, you will learn so much from them about your own content and about how people are searching for the phrases that you're trying to compete for. So I think that's it. I don't see any questions on the side here. Let me just scroll through. Thank you for joining me, for those of you who came here live, and I hope you got something out of it. And we'll do another one of these real soon. I'll put a poll up in a couple of weeks with some more subjects, and you can pick what we'll talk about next. So thank you, and I will see you later. Bye.